NYSC, we are highlighting innovative companies through our Southeast Asia Going Global series. FileAI is one company making moves, and I'm pleased now to be joined by its CEO and co-founder, Christian Schneider. Christian, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's great to have you here at the Stock Exchange. And for our viewers who are watching, what can you tell them about FileAI?
Well, FileAI is a company that is working on business process automation. And us being based in Asia is for us a very good starting point because most of the world's business process is actually outsourced to Asia in general. And so, we're using that base as building a global company, and we build FileAI components to work with large enterprise to automate their mundane day-to-day tasks.
I'm curious, in terms of the travel that you've been making, I see trips from across the Pacific, that is recently from Singapore to the US. What brings FileAI from Singapore and Southeast Asia to the United States?
Well, the United States is the biggest AI enterprise market in the world right now. And we see that. We have thousands of opportunities here with customers. At the same time, we work with BPO partners who automate processes for American businesses. So that's a very good place to be for us. We have so much opportunity here. At the same time, we understand there's a lot of investment going into the space, mostly driven by the US. And so, of course, we see that opportunity as well.
Mm-hmm. What makes the US an attractive market for FileAI?
I mean, just looking at the enterprise readiness to adopt AI, that is very, very much advanced here. We're very excited about talking to the businesses here. Our company focuses on the basics, data preparation, and that is usually where we want to start our conversations with the businesses here.
What are some of the biggest use cases that you see for FileAI in the US?
So we have done a lot with enterprise on data preparation workflows, specifically for data transparency, so they can actually build AI on top of that. And so we do a lot in finance and accounting, insurance, and also banking, when we help large enterprise to be ready for the AI revolution.
What advantages does building from Singapore bring to the AI space, a company like yours making headway here in America?
Absolutely. So as I said, we're in the hotspot of business process automation and outsourcing in Asia. So we have access to markets like India, Philippines, and the likes. We can talk to the businesses who are actually doing that outsourcing work on the ground. Gives us a very good advantage to understand the workflow and the processes within those companies. So that's number one. Number two is Singapore is a very competitive market. It may not always look like that from the outside, but there's a lot of influence in Singapore from tech global powerhouses in the world. We have, of course, the US, we have China, we have India to a certain extent. And that gives us also a very good, healthy competition in our home market. Now, we have headquartered in the US right now, so we're actually based here. At the same time, though, we still have a lot of our team based in Singapore.
What is the toughest challenge of scaling a global company?
So I think there's a lot of challenges, but at the same time, most companies nowadays are global from day one. There's a lot of talent everywhere in the world, and we, of course, want to tap into that talent. There is a war for AI talent here in the US specifically, and so we have a chance to also tap into resources in Asia and even in Europe. So we see ourselves as having an advantage being global from day one, rather than as disadvantage.
What excites you about the future of data processing and engineering?
I think the most exciting and important point is that we see this data processing component as becoming a product in itself. Right now, a lot of enterprises are still looking for point solutions. They're still figuring out RAG versus context engineering versus X, Y, Z. We're trying to productize the whole pipeline, and we would like to sell and ship it to enterprise that way. This will allow us to commoditize this industry much faster and bring businesses where they actually want to be, focusing their efforts on moving the needle for their internal KPIs rather than looking at point solutions somewhere in the middle of the process.
How can more efficient data pipelines help with the sheer amount of energy that it takes to power this?
Make AI systems better. That's really what we're trying to do. Better data, better context for AI, and of course, packaging it all nicely. It has to run in an operational environment, has to be production ready. Doing a demo or POC is nice and good. However, if there's millions of transactions running through the pipelines, that has to be supported. and we're at the forefront of this. We have done over 200 enterprise implementations, especially on the data processing side.
How does agentic AI transform the way that tech companies are built and expand?
I think it's a super transformative component in itself, having the ability to simultaneously tap into and access a lot of different sources of data. That is fantastic. We have to be careful that we have set up the pipelines correctly. I think that is really what we're sitting at. We want to make sure that we can feed agentic components or even agents directly. And then, of course, we will build specific agentic pieces ourselves. So we are quite excited about these pieces taking over some of that mundane task and work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis.
How do you see workflow automation impacting capital markets?
Well, it's basically very similar to it impacting any other enterprise. I think everything is now faster. It can also become, in a certain sense, simultaneous, whereas usually we would think about a workflow in sequence. Now we're breaking that up all together. Yeah, and so that is really exciting. I think for capital markets, there's a massive opportunity in the data preparation side of things, also tapping into alternative data much faster, which usually is a process, but it can now become a real-time push of a button, for example. So that's what we see for capital markets.
Any use cases that you can share in the industry?
Yeah, I'd say data gathering and just basically keeping the data pipes up and running all the time is something that we feel is new. Unstructured data is still very hard to get by, so we really commoditize that part and we help businesses to then tap into data instantly.
Christian, what's the reality or perhaps even hard truth of driving AI transformation for enterprise, especially in East Asia, where your company started?
Yeah, so for us, we look at the process as a 0 to 1 problem. We see 87 steps that are fulfilled, usually either manually or with inefficient automation tools right now. And so we're coming in to support that process directly. That could be in terms of different AI components working together. This could also be the end-to-end process. But the reality is that we see is what was pitched in the past, that there is an agent, so sort of a super agent, that can take it as a top-down approach and just automate, make the problem go away. That is not what we see is actually the reality on the ground. We see there's a lot of companies struggling with getting from 0 to 1, and that is the gap that we would like to bridge first before we go into agentic or even agents.
How has your perspective changed over the years since starting the company?
Yeah, so very, very much, as I said, it's definitely not a silver bullet approach. I think we see that many companies realizing that right now, and there is a couple of options now how to approach this, and we hope that a 0 to 1 vendor like us could be a very good alternative. Of course, we see other companies going straight, to work with Palantir or other large companies who then forward deploy engineers to tackle the problem the same way. But it is a validation for us in our approach rather than the top-down approach.
I'm curious in terms of how this impacts FileAI's go-to-market strategy and the way that you allocate resources.
Yeah. Definitely for us, the go-to-market is that we're running that split approach. We would like to talk to enterprises directly, absolutely. At the same time, we would like to talk to the BPOs. We'd like to talk to the partners who are actually currently fulfilling these workflows. We would like to understand how do they actually solve these very complex problems. They may in itself not be very difficult to understand, but if you string them together, it is a very complex problem to solve. And that is true for an AI agent, the same way that it's true for a human right now.
What does it mean for FileAI to be headquartered in Singapore as a global company?
So we're very excited about that part. We have access to global talent. We also have access to the US market. A lot of the US players are playing a very big game in the Asia market right now. And yeah, we see that as actually an advantage for us. And now being here in the US, I'm very excited about that opportunity, of course.
How does it provide a competitive advantage to companies when it comes to fundraising and scaling?
So scaling wise, I think we've always had our sights on the global markets. Of course, that includes the US, but it also includes Asia as a whole and even Europe. So that was always clear to us. For talent, we have great talent in Asia. At the same time, we're able now to tap into talent in the US as well. So I think for us, it's actually a benefit having both markets as a source. At the same time, yeah, I think that's also kind of true for many companies nowadays.
And what are your views on the exit landscapes for companies that are headquartered in Southeast Asia today?
Yeah, so we're in the enterprise space, and especially in enterprise AI, which is where we play a big role. We see our exit strategy leaning a bit more towards the US market, just because it's the most mature market. I think for other Asian businesses, that may be very different depending on which category and industry they're in. In a B2C environment, for example, Asia is a great market with a lot of users. And yeah, there might be other options for exits.
How has that impacted your approach to scaling the company?
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit more important for us to have a presence in this market here. Make sure that we talk to the customers directly. I'm doing that every day. My team's doing that every day. And of course, then investor discussions are also happening mostly here in the US. So we're quite excited about that part.
Now, at the helm of a global company, you obviously work with leaders across different markets. What's your approach to managing that level of complexity?
Yeah, I mean, hiring for a global startup is surely a challenge. It is a challenge for everybody. For us, I think we have put a lot of effort into starting hiring at the beginning, bottoms up, bringing in good talent that can help us build. At the same time, we had always a lens on how do we build this international team? How can we bring in people who've been managing people globally before? And so that's really been our strategy. It's worked out okay for us so far, I think. We're doing really well, growing really strongly. And we're currently doing that same here in the US, bringing on those leadership teams that we need.
How are you able to get everyone across the globe and as a relatively young company on the same page and united on the mission?
Yeah, we're a super agile company from day one. This is actually a term that coming from the engineering side of things, I'll say, but we operate that way throughout the company. We have a very low hierarchy in the company. We are all talking constantly, and I think rapid communication is really important for a global company. There cannot be gaps in between the teams. That will really cripple our efforts.
How do you see agentic workflows transforming the way that startups are built?
Yeah, so of course you can shortcut a lot of things with agentic workflows within your business. We, for example, have started prototyping product features mostly with agentic platforms, just because it's much faster, cheaper, and also it does not actually require the same amount of resource that it used to require. So I think it's part and parcel. If we're selling AI, we also need to know how to use AI. I think that's very clear.
Christian Schneider, CEO and co-founder of FileAI, joining us here at the Stock Exchange today. Christian, thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten. Thank you. Thanks for having me.